right, everybody, we are back with another Ramp Careers daily update. Today, I am here with Manoj, my co-founder. Manoj, how you doing? It's Friday.
Doing well, Danny. It's Friday. I know. I got a little bit of fresh air today. Went for a quick run outside, so feeling good. How
That's
about you?
great, man. I have not left my house yet today, so I need to. And after this, I'm going to spend some time outside. It's actually beautiful out, and it looks like the air quality in LA is somewhat normal, not unhealthy anymore.
That's right. I forgot about the forest fires. I hope things get better soon. It seemed like something out of a dystopian movie.
Yeah, 2020, just throw it all at us. Why not?
Let's do this today. I know we've been spending the past couple of 4 weeks talking about a bunch of sales topics, prospecting, maybe even about interviews, but I want to flip the script a little bit today and talk about maybe something that's a bit personal to you. You have some crazy sales stories. So let's pick one. I want you to tell me about, and the rest of our audience, about your biggest sales win. Tell us a little more about it. End the week on a good note.
Yeah, just so many to think through, you know? How could I pick one biggest sales win? No, I'm kidding. The one that comes to mind right away was back in the day. One of the early big wins I had at Groupon was when I was an individual contributor and account executive on the New York City team. At the time, New York City was underperforming the rest of the markets. We still had huge numbers in New York City, but I'll set the scene. There was essentially one sales rep on the market for the first 2 or 3 years of Groupon's existence, and the company had grown so big that they needed to staff up that market a little bit. So they brought in several salespeople, including me, to help drive a ton of revenue to the market. And we got together as a team and decided that we were going to launch a best of New York City, kind of like a taste of New York City. So we branded it in order to attract some of the highest quality merchants onto the platform. Because at that time, a year before IPO, Groupon's brand had turned a little bit from a special deal of the day, high quality restaurant, high quality merchant, to maybe a little bit of coupon book. So the brand was struggling to attract some of these top quality merchants. So we figured if we do this big initiative, put some merchandising behind it, we'll be able to attract this elite level merchant. So I'm scrolling through Salesforce, looking at all these old accounts, and all of a sudden the Museum of Modern Art pops up in New York. And I'm like, wow, that's an amazing merchant. Obviously, we'd be really fortunate to have them on our platform and launch a deal for the MoMA, an iconic New York museum. So I set out to win that account. So first I met with the original account executive on the market, this gal named Lena. She's a legend. She had tried for 2 years to attract them and one was unable. And not because she wasn't super talented. She's by far more talented as a rep than I was at the time and probably still to this day. So shout out to Lena if you're watching this. And I spoke with her about her journey to try and win them over. She ran into multiple stall points throughout the deal. The deal had to go through their marketing agency. There were lawyers involved. So I got the download on the deal. And then I had this crazy idea that if we could attract the MoMA, they could be kind of the figurehead of this merchandising event, the best of New York City. So I wrote a cold email, and probably not a cold email that I would write today, but the cold email was legit like a page long on all of the ideas that I had on how they could partner with us, the return on their investment, pretty much just like bombarding them with stats and information and why Groupon was the best. And for some reason, they responded to the email. We got on a call. That's what really kicked off the first chapter of this close, which from email to call probably took 2 weeks.
So early 20-something-year-old, large account, I'm assuming that they're sizable, have some history, but haven't been able to convert. You write a email that is super long, but from the sounds of it, it's personalized. I'm assuming that when you hit send, you were kind of proud of yourself and you thought, I've done a damn good job. This is so thorough. This is so comprehensive. Is that right? Or, were you apprehensive when you hit send? Sounds like you were pretty proud of yourself.
I was proud of myself for writing that long of an email, but in my head, I was like, oh my God, this better work. I spent so much time on this. And typically, at Groupon back in the day, you didn't have to spend so much time like crafting these long emails. We're approaching mom and pop shops. So the email was more of a gateway to the phone call, which, Groupon was aggressive on cold calling back in 2010, 2011. So I'm thinking, okay, I spent so much time on this. I hope they respond. Boom, they respond. Get back on the phone or get on the phone with them. And I'm meeting with the head of operations, the head of marketing at the MoMA, and they loop in their marketing agency. Yeah, a great call. The intro call couldn't have gone any better. They're really apprehensive about discounting their brand, but they see the big vision and they say to us, if we could be the headliner, which is what I promised in my email, if we could could be the headliner. We could figure out a way to make it look like we're not necessarily discounting tickets, but make it look like it's somewhat of a deal to folks that don't have existing memberships to the Museum of Modern Art. So
one of the things that I have personally struggled with in the past is early on in my career, and I know that a lot of sales professionals, whether they're SDRs, BDRs, or even AEs that are a year or two into their job, oftentimes, similar to you, tend to run into meetings with people that are pretty senior, right? So this is someone that's heading up operations or marketing at MoMA. There's an agency involved. You've got a meeting. Going into the meeting, did you feel like you were equals in the conversation? Were you afraid? Were you worried? What kind of prep did you do? And with what you know today, what would you have done differently, or would you have done the same thing in terms of kind of preparing yourself going into the meeting?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Going into the meeting, I was not nervous, actually. I didn't really get nervous for cold calls back in the day. I think my advantage, actually, back when I was 22, 23, I looked really young. So I can barely grow facial hair now, but I could not grow facial hair. Certainly didn't look like a 22-year-old. I would get mistaken for 18 many times. So my advantage, I honestly thought, was being over the phone. I'm not in person and they don't think like I'm a teenager. Played to my strengths. And what I did to prep for that meeting actually was pretty aggressive. So I would go on LinkedIn. I would search through any blogs that I could find on the individual person or people on the phone. So in that case, director of operations, director of marketing. I looked through their marketing agency's portfolio to figure out some of the cool campaigns that they've run for their other clients. And I had a prep sheet or multiple prep sheets with everybody who was going to be on the call, all the stats, how long they've been working at the MoMA, how I thought my hypothesis on how the two positions, head of marketing, head of ops, kind of interplayed with each other, and then a list of all of the high-level executives that could be looped into the call should it need to go there. So I could call those folks out by name. So I had prepped pretty aggressively, and I felt very good going into the call.
You know, it's funny because when you started your story, you made it seem like, oh, I wrote an email, and then next thing I knew, I had a phone call. But just, hearing you list out the number of things that had to happen at each step of the process, to write a long email that has pros and cons, investment, ROI, thoughtfully, that's a lot of work. Do this level of research going into a meeting. Of course, the meeting turned out to be positive because it looks like you had covered as many angles as you possibly can with the information that you have. I think oftentimes people kind of forget that, right? And it's difficult, especially if you're tasked with aggressive sales numbers and you think that volume's the way to go. But at the end of the day, especially for an account that this big, this important, doing this amount of homework seems like it's necessary. I mean, maybe it's not even sufficient, right? Maybe you can do all this work and still something doesn't pan out. But if you don't do this level of work, I guess things don't pan out. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would tell you the story is only half complete because now at this point I'm flying high. Like I think I'm cruising to this deal.
Yeah.
And we leave the conversation with an action plan. And the action plan goes something like this. I'll go back to my merchandising departments or the folks putting on the Best of New York. They'll go back and talk about it internally. We'll meet back. We scheduled a call for next week and we'll talk through what that looks like. I'm thinking this is going great. I'm going to have like a massive win. I can't believe like the MoMA of all places decided they're going to work with Groupon. We get back on the phone the next week and they come with a list of demands that's like 2 pages long, including but not limited to in the editorial, which Groupon held in very high regard. The editorial department, I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, the layout of the website was the Daily Deal and then this kitschy, fun editorial that would really highlight the business. And it had to be written internally at Groupon, the Groupon voice. They wanted to scrap the Groupon voice, which was like a complete deal breaker at the time. Scrap the Groupon voice and pretty much shout out that the MoMA was the best museum, in quotes, the best museum in New York. So putting down every other museum. They also told us that we couldn't work with the Met for like a year or something. So these were deal breakers, right? It's our prerogative to work with whoever we want. And, the editorial is our voice. We want to highlight them in our words. So I'm like, oh crap, this is going to spoil the deal. So I go back to merchandising and frankly, I had to really pull some strings. We got most of their demands accepted. We were able to go with some of their editorial language. However, we pushed back on the Met thing. We told them that if we were going to work with the Met, that was totally separate from this. We wouldn't work with them for the Best of New York campaign, but we could work with them otherwise. They were agreeable to that. So I'm thinking, okay, we're good to go. They, at that point, agreed in principle. This was probably 4 weeks since the original call. I'm thinking, okay, we got this locked up. Then comes the contract time. At this point, I'm so anxious because it's caught up in legal and I've heard horror stories about legal. So the legal call call went something like this. I looped in the legal department at Groupon.
Yeah.
They looped in the legal department at the MoMA. We all got on a call together. I was told and instructed to just sit there silently and listen while the lawyers battle it out. From my perspective, as a 23-year-old sitting there on this big potential deal, the lawyers were like harassing each other. It got contentious. They were like yelling out clauses in our pretty simple contract at the time that were untenable and indemnifications that would be non-agreeable. And they used deal breaker multiple times. I'm sitting there like sweating, like, I can't believe that this is going to screw up the deal. Like, this is over. It's done. It's done for like all my hard work. Can't believe it. Did I overpromise and underdeliver as a sales rep? Like, I'm like, oh my God, this is just, that process took 2 weeks, like straight up 2 weeks. And the lawyers actually hammered it out. And then we were finally able to launch the MoMA during the Best of New York week. And the rest is history. It was a great performing deal. They were happy with the initial burst. I'm not sure if they ever ran again on Groupon. They didn't want to run in my tenure there or the rest of my tenure there, but just kind of shows that so many emotional swings over 8-week period to get from ideation to close deal and then finally launch a few weeks later. It was certainly stressful. And so many times where I was thinking like I'm on top of the world. And then so many times where I'm like down in the dumps, like this can't be real. I can't be screwing this up.
What did you do when you felt that way? It looks like this is a bunch of ups and then a lot of lows. And then at certain points, right, I think certain points in the deal, and this reminds me of another, any large enterprise deal after a while. It's kind of outside your control to some extent. Now you're kind of negotiating maybe economics of the deal that you may not have the authority to approve, or you might be negotiating a contract that you may not have much say in it. How do you kind of deal with it? Is it, I'm going to just cross my fingers and hope the best? Did you try to get buy-in from folks? Was there anything that you were able to do, or you think if you could go back in time, could do to nudge the right people in the right way? Again, what can an AE do these days?
I would say what I did really well and would over again. The things that I would do again, I would certainly do the amount of prep that I did, if not more. I would certainly loop in the parties that I did internally and externally. And I think what I would do less of is, at the time, that was the most important thing in my probably personal and professional life, right? This one deal, I hung my emotional value and then all of my emotions on it. So the day swings were crazy, like sometimes very up, sometimes very down. And what I've learned in general and about myself is that I can separate personal from professional. So if I were to go back in time, I would have told myself to calm down a little bit and find other things to focus on and, maybe meditate. Maybe I went to the gym at the time, but it didn't seem to work. So just find other outlets for that emotional swing and then just decouple the emotional swings from who I am as a person. I think at that point in time was tied very closely together.
This is an incredible story. I can only imagine how much of a roller coaster it must have been, especially when you felt like at moments you were so close to getting it done, and then you see some wrench thrown in, you start getting worried. Thanks for sharing this story, and I think we should do this a little more often. Maybe you also talk about stories where things didn't pan out by putting a lot of effort. My gut feeling is you have more of those stories than success stories. I'm not sure if you'd admit it, but
that's such as life in sales. Such as life in sales. You get the 95% rejection rate to get to the 5%, but the 5% wins are always legendary in your own mind, at least.
That's amazing. Great catching up with you today. Again, thanks for sharing the story, and we should do more of these.
That was great. I'm happy to share. We should give you the opportunity at some point too. For Manoj, I'm Danny, and this has been another Ramp Careers Daily Update. Have a good weekend, everybody. See ya.